Welcome to Theory Paranormal. My name is Pax with my co-host Dalton. This is going to be season 3, episode podcast number 5, and it is going to be on Appalachian mysteries and superstitions. We got together and decided to do something a little bit different. Normally we do things in various states of the United States, sometimes things touching around the world in different countries or folklore or mysteries. And we decided to do something that was more concentrated in a particular area that has a lot of things going on. So with that being said, good afternoon, Mr. Dalton. Hope everything's going good with you. And welcome all of our listeners of Theory Paranormal around the world. And if you're a new listener, welcome. We hope you enjoy this podcast, and we hope you continue to listen to many of our other podcasts. You can find us at theoryparanormal.com and all of the fine podcast platforms, notably around the world. You'll be able to see them on. So, Dalton, what has been going on with you?
Man, just the same stuff every day, just trucking it up.
There you go. Staying busy.
Trying to make a penny.
Yeah. There you
I
go.
first like to want to give a shout out to a couple of new listeners. One would be Kimberly. She's from North Carolina.
Welcome, Kimberly.
She's a new listener. Talk to her. Her practice is actually pagan.
Okay.
And she studies the old style witchcraft, not the Wiccan, but the old style.
Okay.
So hence not to go in any further than that on her, but she basically, we had some decent conversations. So welcome her to the cast.
Podcast. That's Dalton's short version of saying podcast. He likes to shorten things up. So cast.
Podcast. And then the second group is a group of ladies from SSM Health up in Mount Vernon, Illinois. I had to go in there to do a random drug test for trucking, and all them fine ladies in there were very, very cool people, very kind. And one of them, I was talking to another driver, and basically he had an experience. Basically, he couldn't walk no more, and then he had a dream that somebody came and visited him, said, "You're going to walk tomorrow." And he got up and started walking. So we started talking, about, he's like, "I don't know if you're a believer or not." I said, "Well, I am and I'm not, because I'm a paranormal investigator." First instinct is what I always say, because I always say, "Hey, I'm a paranormal investigator. I got different views." Well, the secretary, the lady up front or whatever, she wound up hearing it. And so when I went back there to take care of my business, they were all crowded up like, "Hey, I hear you're a paranormal investigator." I'm like, "Yeah." And so they're all new listeners. They got the link to the podcast and also the website and stuff. So I'd like to thank all those young ladies up there in Mount Vernon at SSM Health for joining us as well.
Oh, there you go. Welcome to the fold, everybody. We hope you enjoy our podcasts and what you may listen to and what you will hear in the future. So, as I originally said, we're going to do this podcast on the Appalachian mysteries and folklore. And Appalachian Mountains cover a pretty good area in the United States. And
basically goes to Canada. So it starts in like the island of Newfoundland in Canada, and it goes 2,050 miles southwestward to central Alabama.
There you go. You can't beat that.
What makes the Appalachian Mountains unique, kind of several reasons. They're among the oldest mountain ranges in the world, stretching, like I said, 2,050 miles from Canada to Alabama. The mountains feature rolling peaks, dense forests, and rich biodiversity, making them basically a vital ecosystem. The region is known for distant culture heritage influenced by various northern European ancestries, which adds to its uniqueness. The Appalachian symbolizes resilience, balancing progress and tradition while facing challenges like climate change. these characteristics contribute to the Appalachian Mountains' distinct identity and significance. I've been like I drive through the Appalachians when I'm driving, and I have never seen anything weird driving through. Now, people say they basically what caught my attention, and to bring it to you, and then see if we wanted to do a podcast on it, is because I've been seeing a lot of reels lately about the Appalachian Mountains and it being haunted, and one was even where a guy went out and went camping in an area that everybody told him don't go there, and of course you get the skeptic, and he's like, yeah, whatever. When he goes out there and he's filming where he gets waken up in the middle of the night by a weird sound, like a weird, not like a rumbling in the brush type. I'm talking like somebody's hollering. It almost sounded like Skinwalker thing, like they'll usually call for help, or they tell you not to whistle or not to do certain things around Skinwalkers. But this thing, it was like a weird hollering, howling type. It was almost howling like an animal, but almost kind of sounded human. And he was in his tent, and you can see him where he closed the secondary. So you got like the net, and then you got the actual tent. He closed the tent part, and he could have been making it up. Who knows? I know, because you didn't really see what it was, but you heard it. And I don't know, unless you're really good at making weird noises. I don't know who can mimic that, but it came up beside the tent. You can hear it sniffing, like it was sniffing him out. And then it was making some weird growling noises. And then it made like the weird, it was a low key howl type human, somebody imitating a wolf, but basically a howl from an animal. It was like mixed. It was weird. And it started, scratching at the tent, not cutting through it or anything, but just like pushing on the tent, making noises. And then it finally disappeared. So after seeing like reel after reel after reel of the Appalachian Mountains, and everybody saying that they closed their curtains, there's a reason why people that live in the mountains, they close their curtains and lock their doors, is because of what's in the woods. So I figured we can dig into this a little bit, see what we find out. What do you think?
Definitely interesting. There's quite a lot of things to unpack about the Appalachian Mountains, going up and down different parts of the country, the United States. Some of the things, just to add as earmarks or notes on it, some of the things that people have may heard of is the Bell Witch. Then there's Bigfoot, the Brown Mountain Lights, the Flatwood Monsters, the Moon-Eyed People, for instance. That's just some of them. And then more famously, you got the Mothman. And then the Mothman. And then you got the Wampus Cat and the Appalachian, superstitions, which, depending on where you go, everybody's going to have an urban legend on something. I find it interesting always, whenever you can go to a small town, you stop randomly if you're traveling. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the United States. It could be anywhere in any country, anywhere. And you stop by a small place or a big place, go get something to eat. And then someone's talking about something, or you're like, what's that about? Or someone's like, oh, that's the local urban legend, or that's the mystery of the town, or this happened once upon a time and nobody ever figured it out. I think it's always neat to hear local folklore, or as Dalton says, folklore. And
I say folklore. It just, my southern accent makes it sound like folklore, man. I'm going to stop you on that, because this thing's getting older. You tell me I always say folklore. I say folklore. Folklore. It's my accent. Get over it.
But it's always interesting because there is always a story, whether it's said or not. And I feel every single time a local story gets shared that has a history, whoever's telling the story maybe adds a little bit to it. So the story you may hear from person A might not be the same story from person B, and they could be 20 feet apart from each other. There's always something special about stories. But what I'm getting at is it's really neat to do research or see something on the internet, the interwebs, whatever you want to call it, and then actually go to a place and talk to people and try to get their opinion. And then you start realizing, hey, maybe what was said on the internet is not 100% true. You know, you might find out more details and more things about something when you go in person and you talk to the local people that are from the town or the village or the city. So I know for a fact when I originally discussed this with Dalton, we were going to do this particular podcast. As soon as he said Appalachian Mountains, the first thing that came to my mind was Mothman. And that was just one of the more prevalent, most superstitious mysteries of folklore for Appalachians for me. Probably also because growing up, that was like the predominant, mystery that I was first impressed upon when it came to mysteries and folklore next to Bigfoot and some other stuff. So that one has always been there for me.
Well, so you're right about folklore and legends, and it contributes to its haunted reputation. Tales of mystery creatures like the Mothman. You also have the Wampus Cat,
Yep.
the Snallygaster, the Flatwoods Monster. You said the Bellrich. You got the Boo Hag. Now, the Boo Hag I've heard before in another place. You got a Silver Giant, a Spectre Moose. Now, that I don't know even what to think about that. But anyway, you're talking about a moose. But anyway, it goes off not only the ghostly encounters, but the tragic histories are passed down through generations. Stories of like phantom miners, ghostly women in white. It's always a woman in white. It's never a woman in red or blue or whatever. It's always white. I guess because they're a ghost. Mysterious lights. I seen another reel, man, where this couple moved into a farmhouse and basically they got it for a good price, and it's probably why they got it for a good price. But they were living there for a while, and then eventually what happened was one night they seen mysterious lights in the woods. So they had like an open field and then the woods, the wood line. And it was a pretty good break between the house and the wood line with that open field.
Right.
And they just started seeing like these mysterious lights pop up. And they kind of, when you looked at them, they kind of looked like headlights or four wheelers or something riding through the woods, the way they were acting. So the guy thought somebody was basically, poaching on their property. So he told his son, go get a flashlight. And by the way, when they moved in there, the wife made him park his guns in the barn out back. She would not allow the guns to be, in the house. So they walked out there and they got real close. And the closer they got, it seemed like the lights were moving, like the lights were backing up. It was weird because you didn't hear nothing. And in the woods, quiet like that, you should be able to hear motors, the sound of engines.
Oh, yeah.
But you didn't hear nothing, and the lights seemed like they were backing up as they as they got closer to. So they stopped. The lights stopped, and then they just went out. And they never could understand it. So next day, they went out there and figured they would go into the woods to figure out where kind of where the lights are, what that might have been if they see tracks or anything. No tracks, no nothing, but they found a den. What looked to be a den, like it was something that was puffed up with trees and branches, and it had an entrance that went like into the ground or something. And so they figured, well, we don't know what that is. Could be a bear den, could be whatever. We're just going to go back to the house. And so a while passed. I'm watching this on the reel, but a while passed, and him and his wife were sitting out on the front porch because that was like a thing they did. They just went out every evening to sit on the front porch and drink a coffee or a tea or whatever. And so she happened to be looking over there or he was looking over there towards the lights, and he seen like a few sets of eyes looking back, like yellow eyes looking back at him. Now you're talking quite a distance, but these eyes seem to be in the middle of that field. So they had to be pretty bright for him to realize, you're looking at yellow eyes, which was weird. And so anyway, he shined a light over there. And as he shined the light, he scanned it across the field and he caught these two wolf-like looking beings. And they were just sitting there staring. And he's like, honey, let's go inside. We need to go inside the house. And she's like, no, I'm enjoying the thing or whatever. And he finally said, look out there. Look, what do you see? And she's like, oh my God, are those like wolves or something? And he's like, I don't know, but let's go inside. So they went inside. And the next nothing happened. Next day they come out. And they didn't really think about it. Just thought it was wolves. And it took another week or so, and then they were sitting out there again. And then I think this time it was the wife. She was looking around, and they were talking, and she looked out, and she goes, I think I see like a bunch of sets of yellow eyes. Now there's like a group of them sitting out there, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, shorten the story up because it's pretty long. But anyway, these beings were out there, and they wound up, like charging them. Like she was looking at them with kind of had the light on them. They started charging them in the house. So they ran into the house and they look out the window and they're just sitting there at the fence line of the yard. There's some gravel. For some reason, there was a gravel deal that circled the house for some reason. I don't know if that was a perimeter or not or whatever. At first, I thought it was something superstitious to keep them out.
Okay.
And so they went out in front of the house and just sat there, and there was like 5 or 6 of them, and you could see their yellow eyes. And one time, one of the kids upstairs looked out the window. The mother was up there saying, "Don't get near the window, and stay in your room or whatever." And she looked out the window, and they were sitting there. But here's the thing: one of them stood up on its back legs.
Interesting.
Like it. Right, and she said it was like 7 or 8 foot tall, and it just stood straight up and let her know that, and looked right at her, let her know that I see you looking at me, kind of thing. So then she dropped to the floor and was crawling backwards, and they came up to the house, and you could hear them going across the deck, and even there. So the second level had an edge on it, like a deal, and they were walking around that second edge. Now, the only thing keeping them from seeing inside or them seeing out was the curtains that were drawn. And you could hear them like scratching at the side of the wall like they were trying to get in. So needless to say, I'll just end it right here. That they didn't know what they were, but these wolf-like creatures actually could stand up on their hind legs like a human being, and they were 7, 8 feet tall, yellow eyes. And after a couple of encounters with these creatures, they basically just packed up and moved out.
Interesting.
So I don't know if they were actually wolves or skinwalker type, if that was a skinwalker type. But what does make it eerie out there is the dense forest and the rugged terrain. The towering trees and the shadowy paths create an unsettling environment where hikers may feel like they're not alone. The sense of isolation combined with unpredictable weather conditions like fog and rain and stuff like that.
I mean, any of that stuff, it plays on your senses, believe it or not, an emotional sense and psychological sense, kind of a dread. You're out in the middle of nowhere. You're having all these weird things happen. You got nowhere to go. You can run for as fast and long as you want, but you're not going to really make any distance from anything. And it makes sense.
And you're in the fog. You can't tell which direction you're going.
No.
Because you ain't going to be able to see the stars. But so the Appalachians, besides abandoned towns, old mining sites, they also have former psychiatric hospitals. Imagine that. Psychiatric hospitals in the Appalachian Mountains.
So just to let everybody know, back in the time of modern medicine in the 1800s and early 1900s, unfortunately, and 1700s, when somebody had any form of deficiency, whether it was psychological, it was mental, maybe it was a personality trait, characteristic, maybe it was somebody, unfortunately, that didn't have all their faculties that were fully formed and they were limited in capacity for different things. they were put in these variety of hospitals for remedial treatment or to keep them from being an endangerment from society, for a lack of better words, unfortunately. And a lot of these people just withered away, or they just lived their life behind walls under the guide and stewardship of the state or the city or whoever deemed that they needed to be protected and taken care of. So,
Well, also you have a lot of these locations have tragic histories like mining accidents,
yep.
and you can count the Civil War battles that happened throughout there. But the most famous one is in West Virginia. Can you remember what that one is?
I'm going to let you say it.
The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. Remember that one?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that place it's very notorious for its dark past and reported hauntings, but it's in the Appalachian. As far as paranormal activity, reports of unexplained phenomena such as eerie sounds, strange lights, and ghostly apparitions. We talked about the sounds and the lights. A lot of people have claimed, even walking through trails and stuff like that in the daytime, I've seen shadow figures. They're common in the mountains. Many visitors and locals have shared their experience of encountering supernatural events, which further fuels the belief in the hauntings. So the reasons geology, now here we go. This is why I went to this, and you'll respect it.
Respect your authority.
Respect. No, this is respect. You'll understand. So the ground, the geology part, has a lot of quartz limestone deposits, and is sometimes thought to amplify these ghostly activity. Now we only have to say sometimes. Quartz, limestone, and fast running water, we always say it does what? It amplifies the paranormal activity, right? So you're getting into now we're getting into sort of like maybe some of the answer why the Appalachians are haunted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because of the minerals that are laying there. The combination of folklore, eerie landscapes, tragic histories, and reported paranormal contributes to the perception of the Appalachian Mountains as a haunted region, making it captivating for both local and visitors alike. Now, I don't know if I'll ever think about maybe going after what I've seen on some of these people's cameras, if I would want to go, because I've also heard about, which is funny because I'm looking at the list of the monsters or the creatures that do it, and they never mention the Appalachian Wendigo. I've heard several times there's a Wendigo that basically haunts the Appalachian woods. You know what a Wendigo is?
There is a lot of talk about a Wendigo, and it depends on who you speak to. But, it could be viewed as everything from a malevolent spirit, to something that's depicted as a creature that looks like a human with characteristics. It just depends on where you're at and who you're talking to. But it's something that's out in the woods that people can never fully get a clear picture of. There's been sightings, and, people do I thought I saw something, or I got a photo, but it's just not clear, or I got a little bit of this or that, but it's never the full extent of the body. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing though. It's supposed to have horns like a deer.
Yeah.
Or like an elk.
Yeah.
So if you see now, it walks on 2 legs.
Mm-hmm.
But if you seen, like, say it decided it wanted to play tricks with you, and it was down low enough, and you just seen the horns, well, you'd think it's just a giant elk or deer or something. So they say, and it is true, like each whoever you talk to has a little bit of a different story. They say it's a creature of evil spirit or originating from Algonquin or something folklore.
Algonquin. It depends on the tribe and all of that. So
Right. So it's been
with the
widely
Native
used in
American.
literature. Right. I figured it's Native American. So it's widely used in literature and other works of art, such as commentary and horror fiction. The Wendigo is often said to be a malevolent spirit. I've even read somewhere where the Wendigo actually eats people.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, you know, for some individuals, it could be nothing more than a bedtime story to get, young children go to sleep, or the Wendigo's going to come get them, like the boogeyman, or what other things parents will tell their kids to go to sleep.
Yeah, they call it a cannibalistic cryptid of your nightmares.
Hmm.
Basically, a humanoid monster with fangs, antlers, and glowing eyes. The Algonquin, Quain Wendigo either devours its victim or possesses their spirit and turns them evil. So basically, the tale goes the Wendigo was once a lost hunter. During a brutally cold winter, this man's intense hunger drove him to cannibalism. After feasting on another human's flesh, he transferred into a crazed man beast, roaming the forest in search for more people to eat. The story of the Wendigo comes from the Native American folklore, which is the word the Algonquin. Details are vary depending on who you ask. We just said that, right? Depending on who you talk to.
Yep.
Some people who have claimed to encounter the beast says it's a relative of Bigfoot, but other reports compare the Wendigo to a werewolf instead. Now, Bigfoot doesn't have antlers. Werewolves don't have antlers. I don't know where they got that from.
Yeah.
Since the Wendigo is said to be a cold weather creature, most sightings have been reported in Canada as well as colder northern states in the U.S. like Minnesota. At the turn of the 20th century, the Algonquin tribes blamed many unsolved disappearance of people to the Wendigo attacks. There's also a Wendigo in Wisconsin, but to stay on track, for being an insatiable predator, the Wendigo is definitely not the largest or most muscular beast out there.
No, very kind of meekish, thinnish,
Right.
not so much muscle mass. It's interesting the way you're going on about the Wendigo, because there's the Mothman, and the Mothman is more or less a creature, loosely stated and said, that it's something with broad wingspan and red eyes. Now, this originally supposedly came out of Point Pleasant, Virginia, when this all first got kicked up, and there were stories and so forth. 10-foot wingspan, maybe. And it's interesting. I see the parallel between the two stories, between the Wendigo and the Mothman, having physiques similarly to a humanoid or human, being really tall, kind of thin, except one has wings, the other doesn't. One has antlers, maybe, supposedly, and is something that's hidden in the woods that most people don't see. The reason why I bring this up is the correlation is that they are folklore / mysteries that people believe and get behind. There's some things that happen with the Mothman where some people contributed or believed it was because of it. Like, for instance, there was a collapse of a bridge called the Silver Bridge, killed 46 people in 1967, and the Mothman was credited for that. I don't laugh in the misery and the tragedy of people dying. I'm laughing in the fact, if you heard it in my voice a little bit, that somebody somewhere said, hey, a bridge collapsed. We're going to say it's because of something that's superstitious. I mean, there's so many other things that you could play into play there with science and logic and all sorts of things like that. And especially in this day and age with understanding of things, with all of these different stories that we've just said thus far, I believe we talked about 3-4 different things. It's all around urban legends and mysteries and people's stories. I mean,
Well,
even Bigfoot, for instance, there you go again. Something else, kind of humanoid walking around in the woods. People can maybe kind of see, maybe saw photos here or there, maybe got a glimpse. But that's what makes all of these stories so crazy in the what if factor. I mean, you could have that one individual in that one town where every single time something happens, he cries wolf. And for anybody that doesn't know, it's a metaphor for basically getting people's attention and saying something's going on when it's not. So the one time somebody cries wolf and it's real, no one's going to believe that individual. You know, that could be
but when
a
you
very
got
real thing.
when you got an individual saying it, but when you got a group of people,
Right.
like constant sightings, like, so you mentioned the Silver Bridge, I think is what it was called.
Yep.
That collapsed.
Yep.
So in 66, two young couples from Point Pleasant up in West Virginia told police they had seen a large black creature whose eyes glowing red standing at the side of the road near what they call the TNT area. Now, I've heard about this. This site is a former World War II munitions plant, and I've heard several Mothman sightings near this plant. They described it as a slender, muscular man about 7 feet tall with white wings. However, she was unable to discern its face due to hypnotic effects of its eyes. Distressed, the witnesses sped away, reporting the creature flew after their car, making a screeching sound, and pursued him as far as Point Pleasant city limits. So over the next few days, more people reported similar sightings after local newspapers covered it. Now, you could have people report, like, you say, hey, we'll give you $10,000 if you can tell us where this guy is, and you're going to get thousands of phone calls for, basically, hints or possible sightings of this person, just trying to get the money. I got to understand that. So after the paper covered it, I can see people jumping on the bandwagon just because, okay, I want to get on this bandwagon that I seen Mothman. But when you have two volunteer firemen who, I'm not going to say firemen. I mean, people are people. Let's just say that people are people. And even though they put a uniform on, but I think the ones that put a uniform on are going to be a little bit more trustworthy than anybody. So when they saw it, said it was a large bird with red eyes, the Mason County sheriff, he believed the sightings were due to an unusually large, basically, heron. It's like shite pokey or something.
Yeah, heron bird.
It's
the tall, thin bird, big eyes, real skinny or thin.
right. So basically they told that when he aimed a flashlight at the creature in a nearby field, its eyes glowed like bicycle reflectors. Now, dogs and cats, most animals, if you shine a light in their eyes, they do reflect. So that might have been anything. But additionally, he blamed buzzing noises from his television set and the disappearance of his German Shepherd on the creature. And there's a lot of stories. So it's not just like you got one person saying it, but here's another thing. And it's just a short version of what I think. Every time you do a research on the Mothman, it seems to be always around a lot of dark energy. So if you went to, say the World War II munitions plant, okay, that's over here. You kind of wouldn't say that, there was a lot of death or gruesome stuff, but it dealt with World War II, so it had some history of darkness. The bridge collapsing. Maybe the bridge collapsed on its own and it just showed up because there's some negative dark energy going on there with that deal. Might not have been the cause. The Mothman might not have caused it, but there was, 46 deaths, I think there was, on that bridge. So I'm just saying, wherever there seemed to be dark energy or negative energy or something bad happened, this thing shows up for some reason. It's just all the things that I read.
And that is pretty interesting. I mean, not showing up for positive, solstice festivals or things that are going on that are, have a good energy environment. It's always on negative connotation type things.
Right. It's kind of weird that he always shows up there.
Yep. Definitely
So,
weird.
so the one thing I wanted to look up was the specter moose, a mysterious giant of the Maine woods. Now, this is up in Maine. So the specter moose is one of the most fascinating, mysterious cryptids of Maine, a state known for its vast, rugged wilderness. The specter moose, specter is Specter, in case you're misunderstanding what I'm saying, is said to be a gigantic white or gray moose that stands 10 to 15 foot tall, weighs nearly 2,500 pounds, has an immense set of formidable antlers that stretch from 10 to 12 feet across. In comparison, an average male moose in Maine weighs about 800 or 900 pounds, stands about 6 feet tall, has an antler span of around 4 to 6 feet. So this thing is pretty much double the size of a normal moose. The first reported sighting of this specter moose dates back to 1891 when a hunting guide named Clarence Duffy saw the beast near Lobster Lake. He was so terrified by the encounter that he fled without taking a shot. Imagine that. I would have took the picture first. Or fired at it first. But anyway, he later told his story, but was laughed at by his peers. However, he was not the only one to see the moose. Over the years, several other hunters and lumbermen claimed to have seen or shot at the specter moose, but none of them managed to bring it down. If it's a ghostly thing, you probably won't. Some even said that the moose was bulletproof, as it seemed to shrug off their shots and charge at them with a furious roar. So the most famous encounter in 1899, when a Massachusetts hunter named Gilman Brown got close enough to count 22 points on one side of its antlers. He fired 5 shots at the animal, but it only glared at him and walked away. Brown later said that he felt like he had seen a ghost. So the specter moose, pretty interesting. It's something out of, and they have these different reports in 1901, like a man is attacked by a large gray animal while fishing. It goes all the way up. Let's go to the latest, 2020. A group of hikers see a large gray animal standing in a clearing. 2010, a woman sees a large gray animal crossing a highway. And then it goes back down to 1910. I think there are 1899, a group of hunters reporting seeing a large gray animal. That's the one I mentioned in Lobster Lake. But many years of sightings on this specter moose. Kind of interesting deal there.
That is pretty interesting. Something else that I think is interesting that I was thinking about is different phases of the moon. I notice when there's full moon and there's a half moon and all these different things, how I think personally it affects people and their behavior, their mindsets, their mood sometimes. And it's kind of interesting if you ever look at horoscopes or you see what the birth month when someone's born and you jump into it. You jump into it. You can see how their characteristical traits of their personality and who they are and what they are almost exactly what that write-up is compared to all the other months that are out there. And
are you going to the moon now?
Yeah, man, going to the moon.
I laugh. I'm sorry, folks. We talked about doing another episode on the moon. I didn't think he was going to bust that out. That's funny.
Well,
so we're on the moon. We're on the moon subject now.
Yeah, we're on the moon subject and horoscopes and stuff. I mean, think about it. How many times have you walked up to someone and been like, "What's someone's like, oh, you into all that paranormal stuff?" And you're like, "Sure." And they're like, "What? Well, what's your sign? What are you into, or what are you about?" I mean, that's just one of the things I found interesting.
We touched base on some of this in another podcast. It affects, like, depending on your horoscope. The thing I touched on in the last one is depending on your horoscope, and we're looking at your date of birth, of course. So each, coming off the top of my head on what I was saying, it might not be exact, but it's pretty much the same. So the time of day that you were born and the day and the month that you were born, I forget what they call it. They can tell, like, you can look that up in a certain thing and you can tell like what that person's energy level should be like or what their aura should be like or whatever. So that the moon also reflects on that as well. Like
Yep.
how it's going to affect you. And some horoscopes, basically some horoscopes actually love the moon because it gives them more energy.
Yep. And what we're talking about right now for everybody that's listening or just decided to jump on this part of the podcast is we're talking about the planetary alignments of how the planets affect humans and people in general also, depending on what month you are. That it may imbue more energy or power, depending on the way you look at it, to you as an individual. Because think about this for a moment. Think about how you're just living your life like normal, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what country you are in. And then you're just going about your life and you notice people's behavior is being different. Your one friend that is always normal, their behavior is erratic. Or that one friend who's always very emotionally stable is very unemotional all of a sudden and unhinged or not their normal selves. Or maybe animals are acting different. And then you look up at night or you're getting ready to go to work in the morning and you look up and it's the early morning and you see it's a full moon and you're like, oh, that's why. The mystique around there being a full moon goes back in history, thousands of years of contributing to why things may be the way they are, good or bad. I find it interesting when it's a full moon because I don't ever go, oh, it's a full moon and start looking for things. There may be days when it's a full moon and I don't even know because I don't track that. I don't check or see the phases of the moon and predict how it's going to affect things. But there'll be times where I'll be driving and I'll see people driving crazy on the road, or I'll be out grocery shopping or at a store or doing different things and I'll see people's behaviors and mannerisms be very not civilized or just off, like something is going on. And I'll look at the environment and say, oh, it might have happened because of this or that. I'll try to rationalize it. But collectively as a whole, I could go to like 3 or 4 different places and everybody's just not right. You could be like, yeah, that's normal. And that over there is not normal. And then later on, I'll see it's a full moon and I'll be like, huh, that's interesting. And then that's when I'll take it to my, the back of my head and go, maybe that might be why people are acting so strange.
Well,
But
people act strange whether it's a full moon, a quarter moon, or a half moon.
I already knew the glass was half full coming around the corner with Dalton there, but I just wanted to say my piece on it before Dalton says it is what it is because that's what I think. You know what I'm saying, Pax?
Well, the moon sign in astrology indicates the position of the moon at the time of your birth. It reflects, like I said, it reflects your emotional landscape, your instincts, and your subconscious mind. While many people are familiar with the sun sign, a lot of people are familiar with their sun sign. I'm not familiar with my sun sign. I didn't know there was a sun sign.
For everything equal, there's an opposite. So
yeah, the yin and yang. I get it. Which represents their outward personality. The moon sign delves deeper into your emotional needs and how you respond to the world around you. Hence, the craziness. So you can use what they call a moon sign calculator to find your moon sign, but consider the moon's transit. This is kind of interesting that the moon changes signs approximately every 2.5 days. If you were born on the day when the moon changed signs, you might have 2 possible moon signs. In such cases, read about both the signs, and that will pretty much tell you what resonates more with you. So you could have more than one moon sign depending on when you were born.
Hmm.
So In the emotional sense, your moon sign reveals what makes you feel secure and nurtured. It influences your emotional responses and how you handle feelings. In your intuition, now we're getting intuition and empathy, empath, basically an empath. The moon sign can also indicate your intuitive abilities and how empathic you are towards others.
Hmm.
Then it goes to like relationships and families. Many astrologers believe that the moon sign reflects your relationship with your mother and basically your father and your family dynamics.
There you
So there's a lot to it as far as what the moon can do. But for detailed analysis of your moon sign, its implications, you can explore resources like Cafe Astrology or Astro Style, which provide in-depth description and horoscopes based on your moon sign. Now, understand, folks, if you go look at these things, I've never used stuff like that. You're going online or you're downloading an app. If it does seem like you, like that's how you know it's legit. Like if you can personally read something and tell, like that's me right there, well then it's probably legit. But if you're guessing if it's you or you're not sure, then don't take it to heart or 100%. Most of these things are basically a gimmick. If you really want to know about it, you got to go deal with people. There is certain people that have actually gone to school and study like your birth date, the time you were born. They ask you what time were you born. Nobody remembers that really. Some people do. It's amazing. Some people actually do. I don't.
Hmm.
So was it AM or PM? AM and PM make a difference. What day? What month? What location were you in when you were born? All that. Then they can do a full, what I call energy reading on you. So it would tell like how much of you are willing to help, how much part of you is willing to help people or, you know, how much of you is willing to sacrifice yourself for different things and stuff like that. So they go straight into your energy, your aura, all that, and it tells you things about yourself. So like if you're a very given person, like if you're the type person that you'd give the shirt off your back before you worry about yourself, they're going to tell you that like this percentage of you would do this, and you're going to be like, yeah, that's right. But I forget what they call those people, but you got to go find somebody that dabbles in that. So
Very interesting. You know, for anybody that is listening to the podcast that's into planetary alignments and astrology and energy and knows a lot about this, if you feel inclined or like to express any thoughts on this, feel free to email me or Dalton at info@theoryparanormal.com or go to theoryparanormal.com and just feel free to submit information and we can read it and get back to you. We are always about learning new things that we are not too familiar with, and we have no problem imparting and sharing that information with everybody as we go along. So,
well, don't forget the Facebook page, Theory Paranormal Facebook page.
yep.
And I've said it before. We really need to do a second podcast on the full moon and effects. There's still a lot more that you can dive into. That's a few rabbit holes we can go pretty deep on. But thanks again for Kimberly in North Carolina and the women of SSM Health in Mount Vernon, Illinois. Thank you all again for joining us. Hope you enjoy our cast and give us some feedback, man. Let us know how we're doing. Anything you want to listen to, or you come up with a question or something. We did that. I know I said it's a family member. It's actually my daughter. I don't mind saying it. It's my daughter, Jamie. She, came up with some questions, her and a friend. She's always asking me questions about it. I said, well, let's just put it out on the air because we always tell people if you got something you want us to form a podcast around, feel free to ask us and we'll do it.
There you go. So, as far as it goes, everybody, this is going to conclude our podcast on Appalachian mountain range and the moon in season 3, podcast number 5 of Theory Paranormal. If you have any questions, thoughts, or concerns, would like to reach out to me or Dalton, you can either email us at info@theoryparanormal.com. You can go to our website at theoryparanormal.com. If you want to look at some things, you can also go to the Facebook page, Theory Paranormal. And we also have a place on our website that you can go to submit any evidence, whether it's photo, video, or audio. There's real-time chat. You can send us messages. And at the bottom of the page, for people that like to actually leave a voicemail or have a conversation, you can actually reach out and give us a call. There's a phone number listed also. And it is a United States phone number for anybody that's interested. So, as we say here at Theory Paranormal, don't be afraid to ask questions.